I've been selling on Poshmark since 2019, and I have been able to consistently grow my income using this platform. When I first started listing on Poshmark, I actually failed and didn't sell anything, and it made me never want to list there again. Fast forward to today, I'm now making consistent daily sales. So what changed between my first listing till today? I realized that each selling platform is different and each one requires a different strategy. Once I started paying attention to what Poshmark wanted out of their sellers and how the algorithm worked and studying what sells on there, I was able to conduct business on Poshmark in a way that made a lot more sense. Now Poshmark, along with every other platform, evolves over the years, and what worked last year isn't working this year. And honestly, a lot has changed with Poshmark over the last year. And I have had to adapt in order to keep making consistent sales on Poshmark. So if you've noticed a shift, you are definitely not alone. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 tips to make consistent sales on Poshmark, and I'm going to include some of their new features and their new rules. Number one is always going to be consistency, or if you don't want to think of it as consistency, think of it as frequency. So you want to be doing things every single day in a regular routine, such as listing, sharing, offers, answering questions, etc. But it's not something that you want to do just whenever you think about it. You want to be on a consistent schedule. Basically, if you want to make consistent sales, then you need to do consistent listings, and then you need to do all of the other customer service stuff that it takes in order to be consistent and get those consistent sales. You can't have one without the other. And so if you want consistency, you're going to have to give consistency. Now, most sellers hear consistency specifically just for listings, but I mentioned all of those other things for the reason number 2, which is that you need to be on the app because it needs to see consistent activity in your store. Poshmark actually made an announcement both at PoshFest last year and recently on their blog that talked about how they reward sellers who are consistently on their platform and doing actions on their platform. It is something that their new search algorithm actually picks up on, and sellers who have more activity in their store will be prioritized in search. Now, they weren't super clear about which kinds of activity, but that is something that they noted that their algorithm picks up on, and you can be placed higher in search because of that. So if you go back to number 1, that consistency, frequency, doing all of those things that I mentioned, listing, sharing, offers, answering customer questions, shipping out, etc. If you're doing those every single day on a routine for, that regular routine basis that you have, it's going to cover step number 2, which is making sure that you are on the app and providing consistent activity so that you can be placed higher in search. I specifically said on the app because I actually noticed when this change switched over that Poshmark was not noting that I was active unless I actually had it on my phone. And so I'm not normally somebody who does any of those things on my phone besides maybe check offers. I do almost everything through the desktop or through my cross-listing tool. And so I wasn't very active on the app. And so now I make sure to hop on every single day just for a couple minutes to do a few activities. So this might be as simple as you using your app to answer customer questions versus on the desktop. Maybe you want to pop on, share just a couple of listings. And by the way, sharing is still important. Actually, when Poshmark announced this new SEO, which I'll actually show you here in just a second in one of our other tips, it actually noted that sharing is still important. It just doesn't act the same way, but it does count as activity. So you need to be on the app. You need to be having consistent activity. And one way you can fix this is simply by spending 5 minutes every single day baked into your regular routine. Maybe you're using the app to answer your customer questions, respond to any offers that may have come up, and possibly sharing a few items. Just taking 5 minutes, but actually on the app could make a huge difference. And again, if you're somebody like me who is on multiple platforms and you're using a cross-listing tool, this is something that's probably not at the forefront of your mind because your cross-listing tool does everything for you. And so you need to, again, bake that into your schedule to have that consistency on the app every single day. And you can do it in just a few minutes. Okay, the third tip on making consistent sales on Poshmark is to stay compliant. As I've mentioned, Poshmark has changed so many things over the last year. It's honestly been quite the roller coaster and it is a lot to keep up with. But one thing that I have noticed is they are implementing a lot of new rules and they're also putting a lot more different metrics on your actual seller account. And whenever a platform does that, you definitely want to pay attention to what it is that they're taking note of. For instance, you can't see it on the desktop version, but you can see it on your closet app now. It actually tells buyers how quickly you ship. And that is something brand new, which tells me that's something they're paying attention to. So anytime you see Poshmark making a note of something in your store, you definitely want to make sure that you're being compliant. I've noticed that Poshmark has been really cracking down on ship times. I think it's typically 3 days or less that they expect you to ship, but now they're sending a bunch of notifications if you're not right on top of it. And so my goal was always to ship next business day. And so if you can have faster ship time, I think it is only going to benefit your sales. A new rule that they've also put into place, which has honestly been like the bane of my existence, is their new excessive delist policy. Basically, Poshmark put this rule in place because they had a ton of sellers that were basically ending an item every single day and relisting that item every single day to basically cheat the search algorithm to get their listing placed at the top of search. And it makes sense why they did that because I don't think that that's fair at all. But with their new excessive delist policy, they have basically AI working in the background to flag sellers that they think might be excessively deleting or delisting or removing items. And unfortunately, their AI cannot tell the difference between somebody who is taking an item down versus somebody who's taking an item down and getting it relisted. And so sometimes sellers like myself are getting falsely flagged. Poshmark has been good if sellers are getting suspended falsely, getting them reactivated, but I feel like their customer service is like really weighed down by all of the people reaching out from this issue. And so it's taking longer and longer to get unsuspended if that accidentally happens. So I don't really have an answer for that. But what I can tell you is stay as compliant as possible. That way, if you do get unfairly suspended, you can just respond that you are following the rules. They can look into it and they can reactivate your closet. So I'm going to pop on the screen actually from their website, their excessive listing removal policy, what you can do and what you can't do. But basically you just can't take anything down for the purpose of refreshing that listing and relisting it again if it's not been older than 60 days. You are allowed to remove items if you no longer have them available. So if you're selling things on other platforms, they're shipped out, you no longer have the item available according to their policy, you can indeed remove them. You definitely want to stay compliant with these rules so that if you do get falsely suspended, you'll have a backup that they can look into and get your account lifted right away. One of their other newer policies that involves just staying compliant is their new seller cancellation policy. So you cannot be canceling orders basically all of the time. A lot of sellers used to lean on Poshmark as the platform that they would take items down on if it sold on another one. You can't do that anymore. So Poshmark has become a lot more like eBay, in my opinion, where they take cancellations very, very seriously. And it can really affect your account if you have too many seller initiated cancellations, meaning you as the seller, there's a problem, something sells for whatever reason, you don't think you can ship it out. Maybe it's not there. Maybe you notice that there's a defect that you didn't note in your listing for whatever reason. But if you as a seller have to cancel it, it counts against your account and you can only have so many of those before your account can get suspended. And so you want to keep your account in really, really, really good status because if you get suspended, you're not going to be able to list, which means you're not going to be able to sell items, which means you're not going to be able to have consistent sales. Putting things in place ahead of time, such as having a really good inventory system or having a cross-listing tool that is super accurate and auto delist for you, or if you're on Posh only, like you shouldn't have any issues there. But if you are on multiple platforms like most of us are, make sure that whatever you're using, whether it's yourself manually or it is a cross-listing tool auto delisting for you. You have checks and balances in place to make sure that that's actually happening. And just because I know you guys are going to ask, I use Nifty to cross-list and also auto delist for me. It also runs automations in the background, and so it will share my listings, it will send out offers, it will do all of the things in the background. I use Nifty for that because I have found it to be the most accurate, and it is the one that I trust the most when it comes to auto delist. And so, with Poshmark having all of these crazy rules, I really need a cross-listing tool that I don't have to worry about taking stuff down. And Nifty is really, really good with that. So I've luckily not had any issues with seller cancellations. So just in general, staying compliant and keeping your account status, like your account health, in really good shape is more important now than it ever has been on Poshmark. All right, number 4 is a brand new one to even me. This is something that they just rolled out, and it is that you need to refresh your older listings. Now, if you have older listings that have been sitting in your store on any platform and they haven't sold, it's just a good idea in general to get those refreshed, whether that's, editing the title, putting new keywords in, or it's ending and getting it relisted. So, you get fresh sets of eyes on it. Remember, on Poshmark, you don't want to do that unless it is 60 days or older to avoid that excessive delist relist policy. Whenever a platform tells you a specific number of days about something, that should tell you when your item becomes stale in their algorithm. And so 60 days on Poshmark, as soon as I heard that for the excessive delist policy, I was like, that's their stale mark for older listings. That's when it stops becoming as searchable in the search algorithm. And so if you have items that are 60 days or older listed in your Poshmark store, you want to get those refreshed somehow. Poshmark also just put in a new inactive policy where your listings, as soon as they reach 60 days or older, get a new status called inactive. I'm actually going to show you the email that I received from them on screen, and then I'm going to walk you through the steps you can take in order to get this corrected if you have inactive listings in your closet. So this says, "Hi Kaylee, some of your listings have gone inactive for 60 days without activity, meaning I haven't edited it. There's no offers, comments, or bundles. And by the way, if none of those things are happening, sales aren't happening, I'm not editing it, I'm not sending out offers, anything, that means that it's basically falling flat. There's not a demand for it based on how I currently have it listed. And so it needs a refresh of some sort in order to perform well anyways. And so I actually like that Poshmark is pointing this out to us. Then it says, here's how to activate them if you have listings that you want to keep selling. And we'll click on that here in just a moment. But the one thing that I want to point out is that this email tells me that inactive listings are still shoppable, but they receive less visibility. And so you don't want anything in your closet that is marked as inactive because it's already not performing well. It's going to get even less visibility in search. And search is what connects your item to a buyer, which makes for sales. So this is something that is brand new to Poshmark sellers, and we're really going to have to pay attention to it to resolve it as soon as we see it. All right, now let me show you how this works. I'm going to click Activate Listings. And so once I do that, it has a little pop-up here and I can click Activate Listings. And I've already activated mine, but when this happens, you will basically just check box all the ones that are marked as inactive and then click Activate here on the screen. If you're also unsure if you have any and you haven't received an email, but you just want to check, you can actually scroll down to their new filter here under listing status and hit inactive. And it will do the same thing. You can then go to your bulk tool button here and then hit bulk activate listings. So again, that's something you're going to want to bake into your normal schedule because once those items hit 60 days, Poshmark is telling us they are not going to get as much visibility in search. And so why do you have them listed, right? If they're not going to connect to the right buyer, we want to get those items refreshed. Again, I use Nifty to automatically do that for me. It has a couple of automations that I can set that tells it, hey, when an item in Poshmark hits the 60-day mark, I want you to end and relist it. And so it does all of that for me in the background. But if you wanted to, you could manually do that as well. All right. And the last and final tip for today's video, number 5, is going to be use keyword-rich titles. Poshmark said that their search algorithm has changed and there's new ways for buyers to find our items. items. But really want to focus on this, how to set yourself up for success, and this part right here. So power discovery with quality listings. This is basically telling us how our buyer is going to find our listings, what's the best way to go about it. Complete listing details, including brand size and condition, and avoid keyword stuffing so search can connect buyers with your listings accurately. I want to full stop right there, because when this came out, I saw a ton of people who for some reason read this as don't put a lot of keywords in my listing, but that's not what it's saying. It says avoid keyword stuffing so search can connect your buyers with your listings accurately. And so what this means is we want to use great keywords, but we want them to be accurate. We don't want to put keywords in there that are not actually about our item and are not going to get it to the right buyer. And so I think a better word that they could have used would be keyword spamming, not keyword stuffing. You want to have really awesome keywords stuffed in your title and stuffed in your listing, because that's one more chance, a different way of describing it for your buyer to find it. And so as long as those keywords are accurate, it's really going to help your listing connect with the right buyer. Something that I've really noticed is that as the algorithm changed with Poshmark, it's a lot more like eBay. And so I'm super used to eBay. I actually use the same titles, same listings across all platforms. There's a way to optimize for every single platform so you don't have to change your workflow for each one. And Poshmark's really acting like eBay now. And so I'm actually having more sales with the new algorithm without having to do anything. But you want to have good, rich keywords in your title that clearly and accurately describe the item. And it's not just brand, size, and condition, but it would also be style, aesthetic keywords such as whimsy goth. If it actually applies, that's also going to help you in search. And then lastly, the obvious ones: use clear titles, detailed descriptions, competitive pricing, and high quality photos. The point I wanted to get at with this last tip is that their SEO has changed. It is acting more like eBay, and you cannot rely as much on the sharing aspect or the community aspect of Poshmark to get those listings seen. And so you need to have a really good listing for each item that uses really awesome keywords to describe it. And that's what's going to connect you. The items are going to have to speak for themselves, which means they're going to have a strong demand, and they're going to have to connect with buyers in the right way using the right keywords. All right, you guys, so those are all of the tips that I have for you today. So much more has changed with Poshmark. And so if you want to see a part 2, comment more down below. If I get enough of the more comments, I'll go ahead and make a part 2, because there are many more tips I could give you, because so much has changed with Poshmark. But I think that's enough for today to just kind of chew on. And I think if you use those 5 tips, you're definitely going to start building those consistent sales on Poshmark. But I think all 5 are so necessary right now, as the landscape has really changed with Poshmark. All right, you guys, I hope these tips help. I will see you in the next one. Bye.